when we're looking at church and we're looking at how to have a thriving biblical community, the things we have to ask ourselves are, where is the wisdom coming from that's being taught and lived out in our church? Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Down to Earth Theology Matters. We are in the book of James doing a verse-by-verse study. I'm joined by Dr. Jason Peters. He's the Greek professor at the Grace School of Theology. Jason, good to have you here again. And we are working our way through the book of James, and we've arrived at James chapter 3 and verse 13. So if you missed the prior episodes, be sure to go online and check them out, because otherwise you'll be, kind of out of context, I guess. But we're going to cover James 3:13 through James 4:3 today, or at least make a valiant attempt to cover that and exegete that. So let me read you the passage. We're going to dive right in here. This is James chapter 3. James says, "Who among you is wise and understanding? By his good conduct, he should show that his works are done in the gentleness that comes from wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder in every evil practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without pretense. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who cultivate peace." In chapter 4, he begins with this: "What is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from your passions that wage war within you? You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and don't receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasure." All right, so there's plenty to unpack here. Let's back it up to verse 13, and I'll toss it over to you with, hey, who among you is wise and understanding? If you're wise and understanding, what should you do? These are the things that you should do, James says.
Well, let me tell you from personal experience.
Yeah, just tell us what you do, Jason, and then we won't even have to dive into the text.
So just from a hermeneutical lens, just for those that are watching that are continuing to practice good hermeneutics and those kinds of things, a lot of times authors use rhetorical questions as either low level or high level, like when I say low or high level, a big shift in the discourse in the letter, like for James, or a small one. So here, when you see 3:13, you have a rhetorical question. When you see again in 4:1, you have a rhetorical question. Now there's some connection, thematic connection, but there's clearly a little shift, a big shift in 3:13 because of the theme has shifted, and a smaller shift in 4:1 because you still kind of this wisdom theme is still pretty prevalent. So just as a hermeneutical place to start, we have this question, right? Who among you is wise and understanding? So James has been talking about all this stuff. Now he brings it back to kind of this big overarching question, really, that he's wanting to get at. And it's the person that demonstrates. So remember that demonstration in chapter 2?
That's right.
So same word, not that lexical connections like that mean a whole lot, but it does kind of it is kind of contextually the same. You're demonstrating dexato from your good way of life, your works that are done in the gentleness of wisdom. Or meekness of wisdom.
That's good. Meekness of wisdom. That's a good way to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is he saying? Hey, if when I say who's wise and understanding, and you raise your hand, then you need to be demonstrating your wisdom and your understanding, not just by what you say, but by your good conduct, by your way of life, your good way of life. And how do you demonstrate it by a good way of life? Well, you're doing these particular actions that show that you have a particular way of life
Show me, don't tell me.
That's right. And you do it in such a way that you have this wise meekness to you. So you're in control. You've restrained yourself, such as your tongue.
Yeah, we just talked about
That's
that. That's
right.
right. He just came out of that. So it's about control. It's about meekness and wisdom that's demonstrated is lived that way. That's good.
That's right. That's right. And so 14, then he moves on. And you have a contrast of ideas as he's moving the discourse forward. And James loves questions and he loves conditional statements. So we have another conditional frame here, right? But if you have, this is what you possess. You have this kind of jealousy and it's bitter. You have this bitter
envy.
Yeah. And this kind of selfish ambition, right? This desire to better yourself at the expense of others. And it's in your hearts. Then just stop boasting and lying against the truth.
That's good. Don't boast and deny the truth. Basically, yeah. Don't boast about that. Stop your boasting. That somehow I'm better than I'm claiming to be. That's kind of an interesting juxtaposition there. Maybe explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean the verb is like to triumph over, even kind of like look down on. You actually, if you were to go back to James chapter 2, I can move back there now, and in verse 13 you have the same verb with mercy, boasting over, or some of our translations say being triumphant over judgment.
Okay, interesting.
Right? So it's a neutral word, right? But to how come I is to boast or to be confident, but kata is down. So not to do some kind of weird etymological gymnastics like how words are put together, but it's really like a looking down on someone. So what's the point, right? So the point is like what you say and what you do should be demonstrated by your way of life, and it should be done in peace. And so if you have this in your heart and you are saying things that are contradicting what's in your heart, you're actually lying against the truth.
Okay.
Right? Why? Because the truth of Scripture is that your words and your actions need to match. Very simple.
Yeah. So that's the denying the truth. You're kind of lying against the truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just he literally says, stop boasting. Right, or looking down with arrogance is how I would maybe conceptualize it, and lying. So stop boasting and lying against the truth. Katates aletheas. So you're rubbing up against the truth. You have this in your heart. You might even be saying truthful things, but you're actually lying because if you have this bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, you're actually going to be acting out of your heart and speaking out of your heart.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? Because from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. We know that. And so James is like saying, hey, this wisdom that you think you have, it's actually not coming down from above.
It's coming from, earthly, unspiritual, demonic. Wow.
Yeah.
Tell
Earthly.
me how you really feel, James.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
bam.
So one more question, just going to throw this out there is, are these believers or unbelievers?
Well, if you look at the context of James over and over and over again, my brothers and sisters, he just repeats that phrase all of the time. So when he says, who among you, he's already addressed them many times.
Who's the you?
Yeah, the you has been defined by the letter itself, brothers and sisters.
In verse 12, my brothers. In verse 10, my brothers. That's so if he's going to change the topic or his audience, he's going to signal that in the discourse, which he doesn't. Right. So he's talking to believers.
Which, by the way, we would never, in the English language, we were going to change. We said, hey, my brother, brothers and sisters. And then if we were going to somehow indicate that we're not talking about someone who's in the family of God, we would make that clear, or else everybody would get royally confused.
100%.
So James doesn't do that. So I think just as in natural English discourse, the same thing applies here, that James doesn't call that out. So who among you, and he's already addressed who the you is. This is my brothers and sisters.
That's right.
Believers in Jesus. That's good.
That's right.
Good to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. So this wisdom is not coming down from above, but it's earthly. It's psyche, like unspiritual, natural kind of, and it's demonic, right? So can believers be influenced by demonic
According
forces?
to James, yes.
Absolutely they can.
Yep.
100%. For where, location, there is what? Jealousy and strife.
Yeah. I've got envy and selfish ambition, same terms that were used in 14. I have them repeating here.
Same terms. There is what? Is disorder, if you have that, and every evil practice. So where is it? So where these things are, there, disorder and evil practices, which are against what? A peaceable way of life, that are against what he's just said.
And what he's getting ready to say here, the wisdom from above
That's
is...
Right. That's right.
Here we go.
Is mine. No.
The wisdom from above
does not belong to me. The wisdom of above first, so priority, is pure.
Okay.
It's pure. And then from its... So in other words, there's nothing that is... that has crept into it to defile it. There's not. It has a wholeness to it. Everything about it is good. It is the opposite of the wisdom from below, right? Then next, however you want to translate that word, it's peaceful, it's gentle, it's obedient, it's full of mercy, good fruits. There's no hypocrisy or judgmentalism in it at all. Think about that.
Wow, that's quite a list. Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing list. James is really, really pushing into this. Like when you look at the Greek, you actually have this nice alliteration with the S sound, the epsilon sound. You have it in the first, second, third, fourth, and sixth words here. And then in the second part, you have alpha, 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 ah. Why do you do that? Because if you're in an oral culture, this is your way of signaling, hey, you need to really push into these things.
That's like the pastor's 3-point message, the alliteration. You got to have
or the intonation when you really get fired up in the pulpit.
Yep.
You know, and you're just throwing your Bible. So here's the juxtaposition. A lot of people think this is the central core of James, is wisdom lived, right? And as a believer, are you going to live with wisdom from below, or are you going to live with wisdom from above? Here are the consequences of wisdom from below. And we'll see that in 4. Here are the consequences for wisdom from above. And we see that in 18 as almost a summary of this. So furthermore, moving on, fruit of righteousness. So righteous fruit. Okay. So what is fruit? Fruit is something produced. Okay. Is sown. So that's something that's spread. In peace, so that's a description, right? And by who? By those making peace. How do you make peace? You live wisely. Because remember, peace for a Jewish thinker is shalom.
Ah, yes, the ultimate goal there.
Yeah, it's wholeness. Yes, it's not unnecessary conflict, but it's a wholeness. You're not lacking in anything, right? You're complete on the inside. And so wisdom from above leads you into righteous fruit. It's what you produce. It's what you spread. And it's the attitude of who you are. And so from there, though, we have this next rhetorical question in 4.
Okay, here we go.
Right? So he's saying all this, and then he comes back, and he's like, so what's the source of the wars and fights among you?
Yeah.
Right? So here's the goal, but here's what's going on in your church, in your gathering. And this is how we know that James is addressing problems within believers and not anything else, right? Is he's maintained you from my brothers, you. So what's the source of the wars and the fights among you? And he says, where are they coming from? Don't they come from your passions that are waging war within you? This is the opposite of the peace that he's talked about multiple times in the preceding section, right? You desire and you don't have. You murder. Wait a second. They're killing each other.
Oof.
and you covet, that starts to sound like the Sermon on the Mount, doesn't it? Right? So you murder and you covet and you can't obtain. You fight and wage war. Now, why didn't James condemn them to hell?
Yeah.
I mean, so if you murder someone, you're not condemned to hell. But guess what? If you don't do what James 2:14 through 26 says, then you're condemned to hell.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would be right, does it?
No, it makes no sense.
Give a free pass to the murderers here.
That's right.
But yeah, you better clothe and feed people, or else you're
so kill people and feed other people. Yeah, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Right.
Nothing's mentioned about that, and he keeps calling them you. He's continually referring to believers here. So you murder and covet and cannot obtain.
You fight, you wage war. So now he's using the same words as in 4:1. You do not have. So obviously they're after things. Maybe they're in a hard situation. Maybe they are trying to survive. Like, we don't know. Or maybe they just have jealousy. Who would they be jealous of? Who could he be talking here? Maybe the rich believers and the poor believers that are in the same community.
Yeah.
Right? The haves and haves not. So he's heavy-handed with the rich, but maybe here he's maybe like going after the poor a little bit, or going after the people that don't have it.
Yeah, they're coveting that. Yeah.
That's right. So you don't have because you're not asking. But wait, Lord, I'm asking. James, I'm asking. Well, you're asking and not receiving. Why? Because you have the wrong motives, so that you would spend it on what makes you feel good. Now, that should preach today.
Yeah.
So this whole section comes back to when we're looking at church, and we're looking at how to have a thriving biblical community. The things we have to ask ourselves are, where is the wisdom coming from that's being taught and lived out in our church? Are we following culture? Are we becoming friends with culture, aka the world? Or are we getting our wisdom from above? Because it's going to look different. We're not going to match what people outside our gatherings are doing. And the world is okay with being jealous and envying and just get whatever you get, eat, drink, for tomorrow we die. The world is okay. James is saying, no, there's something much greater, much grander, much better for you and for the community you're in. But it starts with, how are you going to live? If wisdom is knowledge applied, right, then how are you going to live? Is your conduct going to match your words? Are your words going to be edifying? Are they going to make peace, or are they going to destroy? All this is building up to this. And I think we would do well as a church to really focus on these juxtapositions and be honest with ourselves. Who's actually influencing our way of life and how we live?
Yeah, because he's talking about the other kind of wisdom. It's earthly, it's unspiritual, it's demonic. In other words, as we give in, I think, to our flesh, then we become more and more enamored with the world. And then we know the enemy, the spiritual enemy, spiritual forces, they energize the worldly passions to get us to chase after all the worldly stuff, which, again, you can want something and you ask for it, but you're not asking with the right motives. If you're just asking for selfish reasons, there's a lot here about selfish ambition. So I see that, bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart up front, and then it's repeated again, at the very end of the passage we read. You're asking with wrong motives so that you can spend it on your own pleasures. And so we really have to think about that, I think, as we ask God for things. And I see a lot of motivation, like what's going on at the heart level.
100%.
And I think you were referring to that, even the murdering and coveting here. Do you think he has in mind what Jesus was talking about, which is, if you hate your brother, you've committed murder, or something along those lines? Do you think there's a bit of an exaggeration there? Or?
I mean, I think it's just he's a hyperbolic prophet. Like, read the prophets of the Old Testament. I mean, he is rattling their cage because there are things that are going on, like quarrels and fights and partiality and neglect of the vulnerable that's happening in this church. I mean, welcome to church, right? This is all of us. And so he wants to get their attention because why? Because lives are on the line. And a faith that does not have actions, that has no wisdom, is not useful, and it doesn't help other people. It doesn't deliver anyone from circumstances. It doesn't move us out of a bad Bema seat judgment. Like, it's really important. And so in this passage, the last thing I'll say is, if you zoom back out, remember, James chapter 1 is like a thematic table of contents. And so when you zoom back out, a lot of this stuff of waging war within you, all of these things, and then James making sure and knowing that this has nothing to do with God, right? This has everything to do with us. Is that James 1 is now kind of, it's almost like he's recursive, and he's bringing this back up and making sure it's like, hey, every good and perfect gift comes down from God. Does that mean I'm going to get a pony if I ask for it? No. I think he's really talking about wisdom and right living, because that's what we're supposed to ask for in James 1. The good gifts coming down come from God. The sin comes from us. And so we have got to ask with the right motives, right? Without doubting, ask for wisdom if we're lacking, because the only way we're going to live wisely is if God's Spirit is empowering us to live wisely.
That's good.
And so it all ties together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're out of time this week, but next week we're going to pick it up, because James is going to talk about friendship with the world is hostility toward God. So you won't want to miss that. Be sure to join us next week on Down to Earth Theology Matters. Have a great week, my friends.